We'll call to order the Interim Joint Committee on Appropriations and Revenue, meeting 6, Thursday the 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Annex Room 149. If you will, call the roll, please.
Senator Boswell.
Here.
Senator Deneen.
Here.
Senator Douglas.
Present.
Senator Funky Fromar.
Present.
Senator Givens. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator Neal. Senator Nemus.
Present.
Senator Webb. Representative Banta.
Present.
Representative Bentley. Representative Bowling. Representative Branscombe. Representative Bray.
Present.
Representative Brown.
Here.
Representative Dossett.
Present.
Representative Flannery.
Here.
Representative Fleming.
Present.
Representative Frazier Gordon. Representative Freeland.
Present.
Representative Fugit. Representative Gentry. Representative Hart.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Present.
Representative McCool. Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Palumbo.
Here.
Representative Raymond. Representative Reed.
Here.
Representative Riley. Representative Stevenson. Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Co-Chair McDaniel. Chair Petrie.
Here.
Yes.
We have a quorum duly constituted to conduct business. Chair will entertain a motion on approval of the minutes. Have a motion, a second? Second. All in favor? All opposed? Minutes are approved. And as you've undoubtedly observed, I am not Senator McDaniel, and he is scheduled to be chair today and had arranged the agenda, and unexpectedly he is out of pocket today, sends his regrets. He would like to be here but not possible, and so he asked if I would help cover his agenda and make sure we get our good number of speakers to make it through in the allotted time and hit the topics that we need to. And so without further ado, we have, unless someone has any member seeking special recognition, Senator Funky Fromar.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge and celebrate welcome to Kentucky. We've got our Northern Kentucky University President, Katie Short-Thompson, with us today, and we welcome her back to Kentucky and to Northern Kentucky University. Thanks for being here.
Representative Palumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to introduce a constituent of mine who has been shadowing me today. Josh Buckman, would you stand up, please, Josh? And welcome to the committee. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Any other members seeking recognition? Seeing none, we'll go on to item 3 on the agenda, Centralized Tax Reporting and Distribution System for State and Local Transient Room Taxes November 1 report. And I believe we may have Richard Dobson and may have Kimberly Hensley. Good afternoon, and if each of you will make sure your green lights are really green on those microphones and they're sufficiently close to you so we can pick you up for the record. And if each of you will introduce yourselves for the record, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Petrie and members of the committee. Richard Dobson with the Department of Revenue, Executive Director of the Office of Sales and Excise Taxes.
Good to see you.
And I'm Kimberly Hensley. I'm the Division Director of Miscellaneous Excise Tax.
Very good. Good to see you. If each of you will raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
We have 15 minutes, as I understand it, allotted for this.
Okay.
You can go with the short version or the short version, either one. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we have here is a PowerPoint that kind of summarizes the report that was submitted earlier this week that was mandated by House Bill 360, so hopefully you'll be able to peruse that. So I'll go through these slides, and of course, if you have questions, we'll be glad to try to entertain those. This is a slide that talks about costs and benefits considered just a few observations. Currently under House Bill 8, the question of online facilitators, the issue of those different companies that are helping Kentucky host, get reservations and so forth for short recreational stays. It's mandated by legislation currently in law that they are required to collect and report to the local jurisdictions. And there aren't any technological or legal barriers for them to do so. This last part of the slide talks about, from a Department of Revenue standpoint, the question of centralizing that and taking over administration would be a significant lift in from our perspective. And there's a few considerations here. It would require a significant amount of time, a significant amount of expense, and additional personnel. It's not something that we could do, on a moment's notice. I can elaborate on that as necessary, but in the interest of time, I'll move forward.
Really quickly, question on that: if the program were to be developed, what kind of timeline would be reasonable for DOR to stand up such a program?
Well, that's an important question, and to factor into that consideration, the committee needs to understand that right now the department is involved in a centralized integrated tax system we call DORIS, and the first release that is scheduled is sometime next year, the latter part of next year. Within that first release is our current statewide transient room tax. So that's already in play. That's all the programming for that is set, and the implementation of that is again late next year. The second release is primarily focused upon income tax. And so with our current integration project that is multi-year and multi-pronged, in order to somehow integrate this process, we would have to first of all see where it could be introduced into that release, and even after it was determined the timing of when that could occur, then it would take at least another 12 months to do programming and actually implement, and that cost would be estimated at $2.4 million.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. We also, in the course of the study, reviewed several states, some of our border states, and we looked at Virginia, we looked at Indiana, we looked at Tennessee. And in each of these border states, they have a robust tax structure that has a lot of centralized administration. And each of these states has more capacity and current functionality of central administration than Kentucky does. For example, in Virginia, of course, they have a local option sales tax. They have a local option sales tax, and it's also centrally administered. And the state is involved in that. There are 133 city and county jurisdictions. But the local governments in Virginia also have their own system, and they separately administer many local taxes as well as administer their transient, what they would call their transient room tax. In 2021, Virginia enacted legislation that requires the collection of taxes from the online portals, the facilitators, and they have to report on their receipts. The legislation in Virginia is very similar to what was enacted by House Bill 8 here in Kentucky. So that was done in 2021 in Virginia, and in Virginia they're in compliance, and they're complying with that law, and it's operating. But in Virginia they do not have a centralized administration of the transient room taxes or the lodging taxes. Now in Indiana, moving on, they do not have a local option sales tax, so it's somewhat comparable to Kentucky, but Indiana has a long history of local administration or central administration of local taxes. For example, they administer local income taxes, the state does in Indiana. In Indiana, there's something of a hybrid. They've always had the ability to administer their transient tax. They call it really the innkeeper's tax, lodging tax, but it's only on a voluntary basis. So a local jurisdiction can opt in for central administration or do it locally. and only 15 local jurisdictions in Indiana opt for state administration. In 2019, Indiana did enact legislation requiring, really under the marketplace provider concept, that requires the short-term rental, vacation rental, and other online portals to report directly to the state. But that's in a very limited manner, and they did that in 2019. But they still do not have a mandated, fully centralized state administration. And then finally, Tennessee. Of course, everyone considers, when you think of Tennessee, no income tax, focus heavily upon sales taxes, the local sales taxes. They are centrally administered by the state, these local option sales taxes, and they yet still have their transient taxes that are administered locally rather than statewide. In 2020, July of 2020, the state enacted legislation requiring, it was very limited, but it was the online companies that deal with short-term vacation rental, just the short-term vacation rental. They required them to report centrally. That was enacted in July of 2020, and then it went forward in January, going forward, and it was enacted. So they were able to do that in a relatively short amount of time because they already had the system in place. But here again, in Tennessee's mandate, they only have about 20 taxpayers, and it's not a fully centralized process. So none of the 3 states we looked at that have greater capacity than we currently do, none of those has a mandated, fully centralized administration of our transient room taxes or the lodging taxes. And so now we also asked for input from our own current, from a Kentucky perspective, from some of our local jurisdictions, and Kim is going to go through that briefly.
Yeah, so we had conversations with the Kentucky League of Cities and Louisville Metro Revenue Commission, and in both instances, they stated some concerns. First, they've had this local tax in place for decades, so they already have the personnel and the infrastructure and investments to handle the required reporting and payment. The Kentucky League of Cities states that they remain steadfastly opposed to the state collection of local revenue. It has been the long-standing position of city governments and KLC to oppose any attempted breach of local autonomy in the administration of local taxes and fees. And they also stated that there are no special circumstances or other compelling policy reasons applicable to transient room taxes that would warrant a reversal of our position or consideration by the state of attempting to pass legislation that would infringe on home rule and local responsibility regarding the administration of this tax. It's especially true in light of the General Assembly's passage of House Bill 8 in 2022 regular session, requiring online reservation platforms to collect and remit the tax in the same manner in establishments located within the boundaries of the local jurisdiction. And then we talk with Louisville Metro Commission. They levy an 8.5% transient tax in aggregate, and it represents like 5 separate enactments for different entities and purposes. They also stated House Bill 8 expanded the responsibility to those online travel companies, and they have been collecting the transient room taxes from these online travel companies completely. They all have been in compliance. And then as recently as 2022, Louisville Metro enacted legislation creating the Greater Louisville Lodging Management District to collect an assessment on certain hotels to improve tourism in Louisville Metro. So this is an additional assessment. What's most notable is that they've put in the software to collect both those local taxes and that special assessment. So they've already made the investment in that software, and it was a significant investment on their part. It is the position of LRMC that the conversion to a centralized system is unnecessary for Louisville Metro and could actually impede the collection and distribution of these revenues in a timely and accurate manner.
So in conclusion, the study recommendations from a Department of Revenue perspective, there are currently at least 108 local jurisdictions in the state of Kentucky. And really there are potential 8 different rate combinations. But the local jurisdictions, as has been expressed already, are handling this. They have local control and their long-standing operations. But in view of our study, our comparison to other states and what they have done in their experiences, the department does not recommend, as it states here in this bullet point, adding a local transient room tax to our administration duties, centralization at the present time or in the foreseeable future for the various reasons that we've indicated. What we would respectfully suggest is to allow the provisions of House Bill 8 that was enacted by the General Assembly be allowed to take effect, that the short-term vacation rental platforms be required to comply with the law and to report and pay to the various local jurisdictions throughout the Commonwealth. One thing to note is that House Bill 8 did equalize the base with the statewide 1% transient tax with the various local rates across the state. The base is the same. So what's taxed at the state level is the same thing that's taxed at the local level. And then finally, again, we try to explain our integrated tax system and the long-term project that is going on now and the various things that have done, say, for example, in Tennessee or even, for example, in Indiana. If there was a choice to try to do a hybrid system, it would still require the same amount of expense from the department's perspective and the same amount of time, the same amount of personnel to enact any type of centralization, because we still have to build a structure that we do not have today. And so that's pretty much, in a nutshell, the findings of our report.
Very good. One, I appreciate the presentation on it and keeping it truncated. Good. Also appreciate the good work on the report itself. It's what we asked for, extraordinarily helpful, covers the basis. One thing I do want to ask about real quick, and it may have been in there and I missed it, we're always concerned about streamlined sales tax, making sure we're not running afoul of a group that we try to stay among and stay within. Our current situation without centralized collection, would that run afoul of SUTA or streamlined sales tax?
No, Mr. Chairman, not at all, because that's outside the purview of the sales tax system altogether.
Okay, so I want to make sure you repeat that, because I usually get that one thrown back at me all the time. So streamlined sales tax and SUTA really has zero to deal with this?
It has zero to deal with it. And in fact, it was a topic that was introduced within the governing board. We discussed it about 2 years ago, and then we decided it was not within our purview and we weren't going to tackle that issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Representative Fleming, question, comment? Flannery, I'm sorry. Representative Flannery, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I did some quick math, and I believe we have about 420 cities in Kentucky, and of course 120 counties. So if you take 12 months by maybe 420 something, you're coming up to about 5,000 filings that would have to be made by companies like Airbnb that provide these services. I guess my concern would be that part of what the Wayfair decision, I believe, that it talks about is being unduly burdensome. I mean, that to me would seem to be unduly burdensome. Wouldn't it just be a lot easier to have some sort of alternate route so they can comply, pay what's due?
Well, as far as Wayfair and so forth and the number of cities and counties, it's the number of local jurisdictions that the facilitators are required to report to today doesn't equate with the number of cities and counties. It's the number of the tourism districts. And to the best that we can tell, again, it's not within our purview, but we've estimated at a minimum of 108 jurisdictions total. And even from a nexus jurisdictional standpoint, with Wayfair and undue burden, this is dealing with companies that have no physical presence in the state. And even from the department standpoint, with the online facilitators, what they're doing is they're involved in activities for services that are being performed in this state. It's in the Commonwealth. These are hosts, property owners. The service, the accommodations are being made in this state. So it's a little different issue altogether. There's physical activity being
it's really
performed
not, because
here.
there's still a platform that's being used to interstate commerce where there's money transact out of state.
Right.
And of course, Wayfair did talk about the physical presence and overturned Quill, but it goes on to state that states cannot participate in unduly burdensome acts against those participating in interstate commerce.
Well, I know we can have this debate, but even within the department, we required the online facilitators to collect from their online platforms in 2017. We went to court with them, and they were required to comply, and this is pre-Wayfair. So there wasn't a constitutional issue then from a sales tax standpoint, and I would respectfully suggest there's not a constitutional issue now in this case. But of course, that could be played out in the courts. But the law is in place right now in the state of Kentucky to make this requirement. It's also in place in the state of Virginia, and they are complying in Virginia. And our recommendation is that they be required to comply here in the Commonwealth as well.
Well, what would your all's objection be to allowing some sort of streamlined collection process so they can pay what's due?
Well, again, the study, from a feasibility standpoint, we don't have the capacity to do that right now. We don't have the resources from a programming standpoint. We don't have the physical resources right now. But the companies that are providing these services, they already have the technological capacity to do it. It takes a great deal of programming to actually facilitate the reservations and so forth. They're complying in other jurisdictions in other parts of the country, and why shouldn't they be able to be compliant here? And just from a standpoint of trying to make things simpler, we're all for that, and I think there are things that can be done with participation with our local jurisdiction partners to make things simpler. We could maybe address, for example, filing frequencies, the formatting of returns, make things more uniform from a business standpoint. Yes, we want to do that for sure, but it would be something that would be done on an incremental basis with the participation of all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Senator Boswell, and just to update everybody, we're 3 minutes past time right now.
Just make a comment. This looks like a solution looking for a problem to me. I mean, if local governments put taxes on, then local governments should collect the tax. So I'm sure there's the other side of this, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it later, but it just seems like a problem looking for a solution looking for a problem.
Very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. And again, thank you for the report. I encourage everyone to look down through that. Next up on the agenda, we have motor vehicle rental, ride share business, and associated fees. And I believe Richard Dobson and Kimberly Henson may be involved in that again. Looks like we have two more, one from Uber and one more from Turo. Or if you want to step up just so I know you're in the room and get toward the front, or they're appearing remotely. They are remote. We are good. And then you remain Richard Dobson?
Yes, sir.
You remain Kimberly Hensley?
I do.
And each of you still remain under oath?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very good. And do we expect testimony from Uber and from Turo?
Not part of ours, but
Yeah, I'm asking online, are they there?
Yes, they were.
Yes.
Okay, and can't see anybody, so it may be just the presentation is up. But who do I have from Uber Technologies?
Hi, this is Javi Corioso with Uber.
Very good. Who do I have from Turo, Inc.?
Sean Vink, Associate General Counsel at Turo.
And if each of you will raise your right hands, are they raised?
Yes,
Very good. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I hear one, but I've got two people. Do I have two people on Zoom?
I do.
Oh, very good. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Dobson, please proceed.
all right, thank you. And once again, Kim and I are going to just give a brief presentation on pretty much the status of our current implementation of legislation that was enacted and became effective the first of this year.
Just for time purposes, we got about 20 minutes allotted to this. I think there will be smaller amounts of time, much smaller for Uber and Turo. I believe that's the understanding, so please proceed.
Okay, thank you. The first slide here just highlights some of the key provisions that were codified in 138-472. Talks about the types of businesses that are subject now to the motor vehicle rental rideshare excise tax, the limousine services, peer-to-peer, card sharing, taxi cab, transportation network companies, and you drive it. It's an excise tax that is imposed for the privilege of providing the motor vehicle for sharing or for rent with or without a driver within the Commonwealth. It's a 6% excise tax, and the receipts are deposited into the general fund. That was a provision of House Bill 8, but we do appreciate the General Assembly making some changes to avoid some inadvertent impacts with House Bill 360 that was enacted in 2023, and it was retroactive to the beginning of this year, which basically it excluded from the receipts subject to this tax what's termed human services transportation delivery. And there are different types. This is directly from statute. But basically, these were non-emergency medical transportation services that are funded by Medicaid. And there was no way to pass that tax on, and certainly there was not ever the intent. But there are some taxi cab or companies that get a taxi certificate, and they're exclusively providing these types of transportation services. So they are not subject to the tax.
And I want to make note of that. I know you and others came in and talked with us for about an hour and a half.
Yes,
and this was one of the topics that we covered in pretty good detail. Again, I appreciate you doing that, and that's how that happened. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Registration is currently online through the Department of Revenue's website. It began about December 15th. We have just general questions regarding their business, location, corporate officers, and most importantly are those transportation certificate numbers. Currently we have 130 approved registrants, and 100% of them file online. The tax filing was open in February 2023. The first return and payment was due February 21st. It's usually February the 20th of each month. But returns must be filed and paid electronically, and there are associated penalties and interest on any late filings and payments. So far, we've collected $25.1 million since February.
So far, the program is running, from our perspective, smoothly, and we always have some compliance issues that we're following up on, but overall, we think it's going well. Well, the next few slides deal with some frequently asked questions, and in our implementation of new tax legislation, we have created a website, really goes back all the way to 2018, with taxanswers.ky.gov, giving frequently asked questions on various topics, many on the sales tax side, and then also in Kim's division, the excise tax side. So these are some samples of those questions. The first one here is talking again about the human service transportation delivery. Again, the types of businesses that are subject to the 6% tax, and it does clarify that the providers are able to pass that tax on as a separate line item to their customers. The next set of questions really deals with the definition of gross receipts. How do you calculate what's subject to this 6% tax? And the definition is at the bottom of this slide. I won't take time to read that now, but this slide goes into some examples of how that definition is applied. And there are different charges that, say one of these companies providing transportation services at an airport may encounter that they pass on to their customers. There may be some other taxes, but any cost that they pass on to their customer generally is going to be part of gross receipts subject to this tax, unless it is for example, the local municipal license fee or the you drive it tax. Those taxes it's not a pyramiding of tax on tax, for example. But parking fees and things like that, gratuities, mandated gratuities are part of gross receipts. Voluntary gratuities are not. Then a question of what's provided in the Commonwealth. You know, when you're doing a ride share, if you start your trip outside the state versus ending it in the state, or you just happen to be going through the state. There are examples here, but basically, if it's originating and terminating, originating here, even if it terminates outside the state, it's still subject to the tax. And then the last example, if it's originating here and terminating here, it is subject to tax, but it has to originate here to actually be subject to the tax. When's the tax due? As Kim's already covered, that's 20th day monthly due date, and we do have the electronic filing portal to facilitate this, and there is also that registration process. There's some other questions about itemizing the tax. I won't go into detail here unless somebody wants to ask the question. We do have a loaner rental program. It's a different tax entirely for dealerships that have, operating a service and repair, and that's a $25 per month fee for cars that are in this program. That's totally separate and independent, and dealerships that may participate in this program are not subject to this new excise tax. And then there's a question about you drive it. You know, that's a tax that's in place. It's been long-standing in lieu of the motor vehicle usage tax, and the filing for that, the payment for that is totally separate. It's administered by the Transportation Cabinet versus this new excise tax administered here by us in the Department of Revenue. There are no exemptions because the tax is imposed upon the provider of the services regardless of who the customer is. A few other questions here dealing with a rental versus a lease. And for example, all you drive it services are not subject to this tax because some you drive it are leases rather than rentals. But it's only the rental based on the definition, not a long-term lease that's more than a year. And then finally, we work closely with the Transportation Department, Cabinet, as far as their certifications of these various motor carrier classifications, and there are specific ones enumerated that are subject to tax, and this page gives a listing example of those that are not.
And this is just an example of our website. Well, it is our website, but most notably, taxpayers are going to go here and to the right, and these give you all the electronic registration links and the filing guides, and so it's all housed within our website, and then it just gives general information on the tax itself and provides our contact information, of course. And this is our main contact information at the end. That's all we have.
Very good, thank you. And Uber Technologies, Mr. Corrioso?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Hey. Chairman Petrie, committee members, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Javi Corrioso. I'm the head of public affairs for Uber in the South region. On behalf of Uber Technologies, I appreciate the opportunity to testify before the Joint Committee on Appropriations and Revenue about Uber's business and the impact of the taxes and fees enacted under the House Bill 8 in the 2022 legislative session. Uber has been connecting riders and drivers in Kentucky since 2015. Every week, tens of thousands of Kentuckians use the Uber app to earn income on their own schedule, and hundreds of thousands rely on Uber to commute to work, get to doctor's appointments, visit loved ones, and get home safely at night. Uber drivers use their own personal vehicles to provide services. As independent contractors, drivers have the flexibility to be their own bosses. They also have the responsibility of keeping up with rising costs. In the last year, Kentucky drivers have felt the effects of inflation on gas, maintenance, insurance, and other expenses. The passage of HB 8 added a 6% tax on all transportation network company trips. As you just heard from the Department of Revenue, since January 2023, Uber has paid millions of dollars under this new statewide excise tax. Not only has Kentucky become an outlier in the South, but Uber riders in Kentucky now are amongst the heavily taxed in the nation. Facilitating these connections prevents novel challenges and imposes unique costs on our industry. Over the years, Uber has worked very closely with the legislature to create a regulatory framework to ensure that our industry remains safe, reliable, and compliant with Kentucky law. Uber holds a TNC permit, and the company is regulated by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Division of Motor Carriers. Kentucky regulations impose strict requirements for TNCs to operate. Drivers must get a TNC-specific national criminal background check. They have to get their vehicles inspected, and they must complete a driver safety training course. Both transportation network companies and individual drivers must carry required insurance at levels of coverage specified by the Division of Motor Carriers. These regulatory differences are important. Kentucky law recognizes that companies that rent cars and TNCs that provide rides are in fundamentally different industries. These differences create distinct economic realities. On Uber trips, rider fares are split between drivers and Uber, leaving slim margins after accounting for the costs of regulatory compliance, insurance, and the operation of Uber's technology platform. We appreciate your leadership on these issues. Uber's committed to remaining a vital transportation option for the Commonwealth, supporting visitors who travel to Kentucky for business or pleasure, and helping all of those Kentucky residents who want to get around to enjoy everything that the state has to offer. We believe our company is an important partner in driving economic growth in Kentucky, and we hope to continue to work collaboratively with the Joint Committee on policies that strengthen the Kentucky economy. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to move now, before we go to questions, Sean Vink. See if we can get you pulled up on.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Sean Vink. I'm Associate General Counsel and Senior Director at Turo. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Turo is a peer-to-peer car sharing platform, which means that we enable vehicle owners in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to share their cars with people who are interested in using those vehicles for alternative transportation purposes. We do not engage in ride sharing. We are an alternative to the traditional rental car industry. Kentucky statewide regulatory framework to govern peer-to-peer car sharing that provides for consumer protections, insurance requirements, and other measures that ensure that all peer-to-peer operators are functioning under a common regulatory framework. It's our understanding that there were some questions from the committee in regards to taxes that were imposed pursuant to House Bill 8, and we're here to answer any questions that members of the committee may have in respect of that or any other part of our business. So thank you for the opportunity to appear here, and look forward to addressing your questions.
Thank you, each of you, and thank you again to Mr. Dobson and Ms. Hensley. Seeing no one that's got any questions at this point, this may be a follow-up, unless I've got Senator Boswell. Sorry. Yes,
so just have a question for you. So what is the biggest problem that you face as far as what we may be able to have? Is it over-regulation or the tax? What is the biggest problem that you face, taxes or regulation? Question.
I'm going to assume that that's going to be directed to either Mr. Corrioso or to Mr. Vink or both.
I'll take this one, Senator Boswell. Thank you for the question. Like I stated, we've been good corporate citizens since January. We've paid millions of dollars under this new excise tax. There are some very unique requirements to the rideshare industry that I think have had a probable negative impact, especially on the prices that consumers pay. That's not in any way related to the tax. And that's usually around insurance requirements. I think as everyone has seen, the cost of auto insurance has even outpaced the rise in inflation. As one of the largest consumers of auto insurance in the country, we felt that as a company as well. And some of those insurance requirements that our industry has that may not be the same insurance requirements that similar forms of transportation may be required to carry have led to an increase in costs for consumers in the state. So to answer your question specifically, I think that there might be, from a regulatory perspective, some changes that other states have taken a look at and have implemented to try to help consumers a bit, especially when it comes to the cost of auto insurance in the state.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Very good. Seeing no other members seeking recognition for comment or question, I thank all four of you again for the presentation, and anyone is more than welcome, I assume, to follow up with any of the four of you with further questions if they may have them. Thank y'all. We will move on to agenda item number 5. And as I understand, agenda item number 5, A through I, is designed to take about 45 minutes with a little transition time between the groups that'll be coming up. So I would encourage everyone to be ready. I think it's about 5 minutes for this purpose. We'll be talking about university capital project requests. As we all know, in each budget cycle, we have universities have requests about projects of which they have greater and lesser interest, usually greater. And I think Senator McDaniel wanted to set this up as a time for them to come in and have about 5 minutes each. That's 5 minutes, about 5 minutes, 5 minutes each to highlight what they so choose to highlight during that 5 minutes. So with that said, 5A is Western Kentucky University. Jennifer Smith, Brian Russell, come on up. We're going to do everybody get ready for the same thing. So please be seated. Please introduce yourselves for the record. Make sure the green lights are really green and the microphones are close enough to you so the record can pick you up. And I'll swear you in under oath after that. Please introduce.
Jennifer Smith, Executive Director of Government and External Relations for Western Kentucky University.
Very good.
Brian Russell, Chief Facilities Officer for Western Kentucky University.
Very good. Each of you raise your right hands. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Chairman Petrie and members of the committee, thank you for having us today to give us a few minutes to go over mainly our top 5 capital projects. I'm going to start out with Academic Complex. This was originally submitted as a renovation, and upon further review of the building, feel that we need to actually replace that building. It is home to our College of Health and Human Services, so anything nursing, dental hygiene, kinesiology, you name it, it's going to go through that building. It is the first, I should say, it's the first 2 years of our nursing program. The last 2 years is in our building on the Medical Center campus in Bowling Green. So that is the first one. The second one is to renovate and expand our innovation campus. So some of you might have known this as the WKU Center for Research and Development. It is now, we are now calling it the Innovation Campus. It is the economic hub of South Central Kentucky. And so it is home to a small business accelerator and to many national headquarters. Just this year alone, we've had 3 national headquarters announced that they are locating at our innovation campus. And so it is it was, as President Caboni hates for anyone to say this, it's the old mall in Bowling Green. And so it no longer is an old mall, obviously, but it still kind of has a little bit of that look to it. And so it definitely needs a big overhaul over there too. It's also home to several university labs and research labs and things like that.
The third project is Henry Hardin Cherry. Currently, we are using asset preservation funds to look at renovating that building fully. It is one of our most utilized buildings on campus. We've hired Ross Tarrant architects, Kerr-Gurulik engineers, and others to do this evaluation, which they completed. We earmarked $30 million to do that work, and our assessment came back with just the true construction needs of about $37 million. So we've asked for another project on the capital plan of $30 million to be able to fully renovate this iconic and fully utilized facility on campus.
Our next project is titled Renovate Potter College Arts and Letters Facilities. This is mainly the Fine Arts Center on campus. This building was built in the 70s. It kind of was plopped right down in the middle of campus where our football field used to be when the football field was very first constructed long time ago. It has never had a renovation. It was built in the 70s. And so it is home to recital halls, all of our communications programs, foreign languages, I mean, you name it, theater, dance, everything is in that building that has to do with really those arts and letters. So that building needs a renovation as well. And then our last project in our top 5 is to renovate Raymond Craven's library. So we have 2 libraries on campus that are connected. The Margie Helm Library, we did a renovation of that. That opened last fall. It's now the WKU Commons. This building was built in 1969. It's had a few minor renovations with facade work. We were having, the facade was falling off, so we had to do some renovations on that. It's had a few renovations for computer lab space and study space and that sort of thing in there, but it does need a full renovation as well. And then beyond that, we obviously still have all of our normal needs. We have put in a request for reauthorization of agency bond authorization for our Gordon Ford College of Business, which is the project that you all funded in the 22 budget, and we are very appreciative of that. But, need that there as a safety net in case the state funds that we have don't cover the full cost of construction. Brian was giving me a great update on the way up here of all the ways that we are trying to cut back to meet that number. Also, we need reauthorization for our athletics projects that we have for agency bond authorization. And then, as I think you'll probably hear from every university, we are all very appreciative of the asset preservation funds that you all provided in the 22 budget, and we would like to see that continue. So, do you have any questions?
Very good.
Did I stick to my 5 minutes?
You are. We're at 141 to 146, and we're rounding out the backside of one. Very much. We are not going to have, the way this is scheduled, I don't think we're going to have questions, but I would encourage anyone to speak with the universities afterwards, in person, online, whatever. I'm sure they'll be glad to talk to you about it in detail. We're going to move on now to 5B.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 5B, Northern Kentucky University. I don't think. If you will, each will introduce yourselves for the record.
I am Katie Short-Thompson, president of Northern Kentucky University.
Eric Gentry, Vice President, University Advancement in Northern Kentucky University.
Very good. Each of you raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed. We've got about 5 minutes. I hate to do that, but that's the way this is designed. Okay, please
Good
proceed.
afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Petrie and members of the committee. I am delighted to be here with you this afternoon. As I said, I'm Katie Short-Thompson. I'm the brand new president of Northern Kentucky University. Today marks my 1 month in the role, and I am pleased to be here with you today. Just as quick background, I spent my first 14 years at Northern Kentucky University as a faculty member, and then left Northern Kentucky University in 2010 and became a dean at the University of Cincinnati, and then traveled up to Hope College in Michigan and served as their provost, and then served as the CEO of a nonprofit focusing on educational equity. And just this past month, I returned home to Northern Kentucky University to serve as its president, as 7th president. Couldn't be happier to be home. For those of you who are alumni, we're glad to see you. And frankly, there's nothing quite like home and having the opportunity to lead the university that I love and believe so strongly in. I'm also a person who has lived in the region for 51 years. So this work is personal for me, and I couldn't be happier to be here to do it and to spend the rest of my career here serving the Commonwealth. And so with that, I'm delighted to share with you 3 of our priorities today. And I'm just glad to have the opportunity to go into some detail with you. The first of which is to replace our enterprise resource planning system. It is, we're requesting $15 million in state bonds. That is the source that's been identified for that request. And it is simply to update our operating system that operates all sorts of different aspects of the university's administrative operating system. We use SAP. And it is currently at its end-of-life stage and will no longer be supported in the upcoming years. These transitions, as you know, take years to migrate over into the new operation. The system itself actually operates our student information system functions and all aspects of our business operations. So you can imagine a very important system for Northern Kentucky University. critical to how we serve our students, as well as our ability to engage with all of our different constituents at NKU. So secondly, we are requesting your support of our state asset preservation for 2024 to 2026. First of all, I just want to say thank you for your investment in us from 22 to 24. Those funds were much appreciated and fully being utilized to preserve our campus and to make sure that we are well situated physically on campus. The proposed amount from 24 to 26 will be $48,458,000. And the university, I just want to note, the university is not in a position to match the funds for the proposed asset preservation funding for this cycle. I will say that the capital renewal backlog at NKU is significant, approximately $350 million. And we will be focusing on building modernization, system upgrades, and replacements. Our campus is 55 years old, and a number of the buildings will require those investments. Finally, another particular investment is in renewing and renovating Steele Library, one of our original buildings. It was built in 1974, and we're requesting $69 million in state bonds. The renovation of that roughly 141,000 gross square foot building, again, 49-year-old building, will be an important investment for us at NKU. Not a traditional library arrangement. We will be seeing it as a hub of the campus where we will house our new academic commons, which will serve to essentially support our students in student success efforts, particularly focused on tutoring and other supports that are necessary to help our students who have had some struggles resulting from some pandemic learning loss and some other foundational knowledge challenges over the last few years. We also will be working to connect them in the community, working with career services and making sure that our students are as well prepared as ever, or even more so, to be prepared for the workforce that we support so well. This will, as I mentioned, revitalize our academic hub and really serve our students in a much more cohesive and centralized way, easier to access for our students. It will also energize our student engagement and help our students, frankly, to succeed. We have just actually realized the highest retention rates of our institution's history, and our goal is to continue that as well as to increase our graduation rates. And so with those investment requests, I simply thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I really appreciate all of the support that you've always provided for Northern Kentucky University.
Very good.
Thank you
all very much.
Thanks.
Item 5C, Murray State University. Good afternoon. Make sure the green light is really green. Microphone's close enough. Introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
And if you will, raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Pull up our very short PowerPoint here. All right. So this is Murray State University's project request. Our number one request is the asset preservation pool, $60 million. That's that's Murray State's portion of the CPE requested $700 million asset preservation pool. Murray is requesting that we not have a match requirement. However, if one is required, we will match it from existing bond proceeds and restricted agency funds. Second project is a learning commons with a housing component, a $38 million request. We had a record enrollment this year, record freshman class, the highest in our school's history. So we're going to have to continue to address a housing shortage on campus. And this is a real recruitment and retention initiative for first-time students. And you can read more about the Learning Commons in your documents there. The next request is for the School of Nursing and Health Professions building, a Phase 2. In the last budget cycle, the General Assembly funded $45.5 million for a new nursing and health professions building, another program that has continued to explode at Murray State in terms of enrollment. and need in our region. But we're asking for a phase 2 in order to fully complete that project as originally planned. That would include laboratory, clinical space, everything that was in those original plans. Requesting reauthorization and new authorization for agency bonds. It's $122.2 million in total. I won't read all of these projects, but you can see it's for residence hall HVAC systems, asset preservation pool for our residence halls, a new auxiliary services building. We need to replace College Courts apartments, which I know some of you in here are familiar with who are alums. There'll be 1 to 5 buildings for $15 million, and then construct an additional residential housing. And Mr. Chairman, this is a list of all of our capital project requests in total that we would like included as well. And with that, no, we're not taking any questions, but happy to take any after the committee meeting. So,
very good. I appreciate it. And understand from institution to institution, we're largely talking about bonds or reauthorization of bonds. We'll have to break those down and see what's continuing and what's new. That's something we'll be looking for. Okay. Very good. On to D, University of Kentucky. And if each of you will introduce yourselves for the record, make sure the microphones are really green and really close.
Hello, I am Angie Martin, and I am the Chief Budget Officer at the University of Kentucky.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Vosovich. I'm Vice President and Chief Facilities Officer at the University of Kentucky.
Very good. Well, each of you raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a few minutes today to go over the University of Kentucky's priority projects for this upcoming biennium. Just as a reminder, UK includes the Academic Medical Center, UK Healthcare. So when you look at our requests, the number of projects that we're requesting and the dollar amounts can look large. Because of the size of the institution, really, and what all is included. With regard to our projects, though, especially our top 4 priorities, when you look at the funding, they're either 100% university funded, or it's a partnership with the state whereby the institution's putting in funding and requesting the state to do so as well on our instruction and research type projects. Or, of course, it's a share of the Council on Post-Secondary Education's requested asset preservation pool.
All right, thank you so much. So this afternoon, we want to talk about 4 of those projects for us. The first one is to construct and improve our medical administrative facility. This is the expansion of UK Healthcare Hospital, where we would like to construct a new bed tower that will result in approximately 700 additional beds when it is completed. This project, first phase, will be targeted to be completed in mid-2029. And then our next project is for asset preservation. You've heard our other colleagues talk about this as well. We're all dealing with some of those vintage facilities on our campus as well as our infrastructure that needs attention. So we're looking at building systems improvements, we're looking at utility infrastructure improvements, and possibly major renovations to some of our existing facilities also. So those building systems improvements include things like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, our building envelope, which are roofs and windows, and life safety items, as well as things like ADA accessibility in our buildings. The next project that we want to talk to you about is to construct an agricultural research facility. This is a replacement of an existing vintage research facility that we have on campus currently. It is a new facility to replace lab research and classroom facilities. Those classroom facilities are actually teaching labs that we are including in this project, and for the College of Agriculture, Food and Environment. So we're asking for the reauthorization on that project, and that project is scheduled to be complete in 2026. And then finally, we would also like to construct a new research facility. You may recall that a few years ago we did a multidisciplinary research facility that the Commonwealth helped us immensely with that project, and it has been a huge success, and it's full. So we are looking forward to doing another building very similar, maybe identical to the facility that you're showing on the slide right here. It will be approximately 300,000 square feet to expand that research component, and it's scheduled for completion in 2026 as well. Now, when we talk about multidisciplinary and this existing facility that we have now, those are research programs that are addressing cardiovascular issues, our diabetes and obesity issues, cancer, and also the opioid and drug epidemic that we're currently experiencing. So 4 projects, and those asset preservation ones, as a facilities person that's doing this like for a really, really long time, those are the things that are really important for us to keep functioning and being able to deliver the level of service to our students that we're trying to do.
Very good. Thank you both. Next up, we have Morehead State University. And as usual, if you will, make sure the light's really green, make sure the microphone's close enough, introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Jay Morgan. I serve as president of Morehead State University.
Very good. Will you raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Interim Joint Committee for the opportunity to present before you today. Morehead State University is very pleased to present a number of projects, some of which are reauthorization of bonds. The first thing I'd like to do is, much like my colleagues have done before me, is to say thank you to the Assembly for this current biennial budget and the asset preservation dollars that were afforded to all the institutions. Those were a little like manna from heaven in a way to all of our campuses, and we say thank you. We'd like to advocate on behalf of all of higher education for a possible another round of those. And also in your packet you can see, and as well on the screen, my colleagues and I would like to advocate for an expansion of those languages around the use of those dollars. This specifically comes as a request from Morehead State University, but I hope that it will be favorably met by my colleagues as well. We are requesting one new building for our institution. Our institution, other than the Science and Engineering building that was afforded to us in the most recent current biennium, has not received a new academic building other than one that we share with a hospital and the University of Kentucky since 1975. So as a part of our plan, we'd like to request dollars for a multidisciplinary classroom building to bring down or raise 2 other, possibly 3 older buildings, consolidate them all into one building, and eliminate the other 2, one of which was built in 1954, one in 1961, and potentially one built around 1970. The second priority, much like my colleagues, is phase 2 of the current projects that we're undertaking design right now. And for Morehead State University, that was the construction of a new science and engineering building. This particular building was replacing 2 other buildings, of which we intend to raise when this one is complete. And this particular building in phase 2 would eliminate the need to keep a 1937 science building on our roster and also a 1950s engineering building on our roster. Moving on, and just very quickly, renovation for a classroom building. It's a nice building with good bones, but needs a little bit of help if that is possible. Moving on to agency bond and bond reauthorization, we'd request, Mr. Chairman and committee, priority 1 and 2 to reauthorize bonding for a new residence hall, primarily for number 1 and potentially for number 2 for a future planning purposes. I know it wasn't necessarily in the request today, but we'd like to say thank you for your support of the Craft Academy as a mandated program and our expansion of that, and we hope that that continues forward. We would also like to request before the committee today, and you helped us in this current biennium for the construction of our space science satellite. Many of you know who have been on our campus. We've had an existing satellite for a number of years. You assisted us over the last 2 years, 2 bienniums, with the construction of our second satellite on the top of the mountain behind our campus. And Mr. Chairman and committee, we'd like to request continued assistance with these values with a push to construct a third satellite for our campus going forward. Thank you very much, and I know time is limited and happy to answer questions that you might have at another time.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have University of Louisville. And I'll just draw everybody's attention before we get started. There is a packet of information, University of Louisville, down here for everyone to pick up as you go out. And if each of you will introduce yourselves for the record, make sure the microphone's really green and close enough to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Petrie, members of the committee. I'm Kim Schatzel, and I serve as the president of the University of Louisville.
And I'm Shannon Rickett. I'm the Associate VP of Government Relations at the University of Louisville.
If each of you will raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
First, I'd like to thank, as many of my colleagues has, the support that we received from the Commonwealth and from the legislature last year. In the last budget cycle, the state authorized some very, very important projects for the university, and the 3 projects that are listed on this slide are vital to our students, faculty, staff, as well as our community. We're especially thankful, as you've heard from the other presidents and members of the other universities, for the asset preservation funding. Last session, you provided $82 million to U of L, which we matched with $24 million for much-needed repairs and preventative maintenance, and we certainly support and appreciate that support. We know that we and many other institutions across the Commonwealth still have significant maintenance needs, so we fully support CEB's request for additional asset preservation for this upcoming year. While the university has a lot of needs, the proposed Health Sciences Simulation Center and Collaboration Hub is most critical to us because it addresses one of the needs that we're all aware of across the Commonwealth, which is a shortage of nurses. As you can see from the slide, there are more than 6,000 open nursing positions in Kentucky, and that number is expected to continue to grow. It is a national issue. So we're not going to be able to attract nurses from other states because they're having shortages that they're facing. So that means that we have to increase the production of nurses within the Commonwealth itself. Fortunately, we're well positioned to be able to do that. U of L currently produces more bachelor's degree prepared nurses than any other university in Kentucky, and 82% of them remain in the state. But we are out of room in our nursing school, and this new building will enable us to grow our nursing program by more than 50%. We will be able to increase the number of graduates by more than 50%. The simulation part of this is critical as well. When you're looking at shortages of nurses, what it means is in the hospitals themselves, where we replace student nurses, because of staffing shortages, they're unable to take the student nurses that they might take maybe 10 years ago because of the fact that they have shortages of staffing and need to tend for the patients themselves. The simulation provides the fact that up to 50% of those contact hours in clinical can be replaced by simulation. So that's one of the ways that we can be able to grow the capacity. This hub will also help U of L address needs in other health profession programs and other degrees in areas of acute shortage, such as nurse practitioner, especially primary care, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioners, nurse anesthetists, and medical technologists. The building will also include a state-of-the-art simulation space, as I said, to prepare our students, but we've also going to be able to partner with Jefferson Community and Technical College to help train many other local professionals. They have over 24 degree programs that we've talked with them about to be able to provide this simulation center and its technology to those students as well. This growth will help fill a significant need not only for U of L, but also for Norton and U of L health systems. These organizations, as well as Louisville Metro government and leading corporations, have provided letters of support. So we have letters of support from Norton, from U of L Health, from JCTC, and also from the city of Louisville itself. So we appreciate, and we're looking forward to that collaboration. We can address these shortages. Our next priority is a new academic building focusing on the STEM field. And again, this includes the fact to be able to have nurses, you have to take them through these science courses as well. So you need expansion in that capacity. And it's the prerequisites for the students to be able to enter health sciences in high-tech, high-demand areas such as computer science and neuroscience. National organizations are predicting that within 3 years, there'll be a shortage of more than 3.5 million STEM workers. This building will help us attract and graduate students who are prepared to fill those jobs by offering the latest technologies. Neighboring states are reaching out to attract Kentucky's best and brightest students, and the state-of-the-art facility will help us keep those students in Kentucky and provide the workforce that is needed to be able to make sure that Kentucky is competitive moving into the future. Of course, we have other needs, but I wanted to make sure that I highlighted those just as our other sister universities has. But these two facilities are just impact workforce more than I can be able to highlight. And I hope I've emphasized that and that it's really addressing the workforce needs that we see. And by investing in these two key facilities, that we are really, really trying to address key shortages in healthcare as well as in STEM for the Commonwealth.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Eastern Kentucky University. No big E. Excuse me. Cut the phone. When you're ready, if the two of you will make sure the microphones are on, the green light's really green, close enough to you, and introduce yourselves for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. David McFadden, President, Eastern Kentucky University.
Barry Pointer, Senior VP for Finance and Administration.
Very good. If each of you raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be with you this afternoon. I would tell you that our presentation today really is going to revisit mostly work that we've done over the last couple of years. Every project that we're bringing forward today is an extension or a phasing of projects that the General Assembly has supported or funded in some capacity already at this point. We will start with our fastest growing program on EKU's campus, which is our aviation program. This fall, we welcomed 400 students into that program. As you can see from the presentation, I'm going to put this in screen view here real quick. Find the button. Almost right down here. There we go. This program has continued to grow, one of the top flight programs in America. But as you can see from a facility standpoint, we are operating that at the Central Kentucky Regional Airport with some repurposed FEMA trailers that we have been very creative in the work that we have done there in good Eastern Kentucky spirit. But we are very hopeful this year that we will be able to get funded a full-scale aviation classroom building for that program, which is located at the Central Kentucky Regional Airport. Second project for us as we continue to work on it continues to be phase 2 for our laboratory school at EKU. We are the only school that is still supporting a laboratory environment amongst the post-secondary institutions. We serve over 1,000 P through 12th graders at that school. We are creating innovative practices in teaching, learning, healthcare, school safety, a number of the things that we do at EKU that are exceptional for the institution. We are very hopeful that as we go through this legislative session, if additional funds are available, that we will be able to complete this project in the next biennium. Next up, our Alumni Coliseum renovation, which was funded in the last legislative session. This was a 2-phase project at all points. This facility, while it does host athletic events, is the front door to our campus. It is where we host every orientation, every community engagement. It is truly a university gathering point for us on campus, highly utilized space and a space that we use for really all student engagement activities. And then the last thing, as I would echo with our fellow institutions, the investment that the General Assembly has made in our facilities as a partnership with the universities has been tremendous. From steam lines to electrical systems to plumbing to HVAC, and I will say that as we get into this cold spell, we are very grateful to be able to keep things warm when they need to be warm and cool when they need to be cool. And we're very hopeful we can continue that work with the General Assembly in this upcoming session. Our full list of projects will be included in our submission, which includes some agency requests and other items. If you have any questions about those, please see me, but please know that Amy Scarborough, who works for EKU, will surely be darkening your door during the session to make sure all of our priorities are, make sure that we answer any questions. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Up next, we'll have Kentucky Community and Technical College System. I understand you may have a lot of campuses, but we still got 5 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If each of you will make sure that your microphones are on, really green and close enough to you so we can pick you up, and then yourselves for the record.
I'm Buddy Combs, the Interim Vice President for Administrative Services and Chief Financial Officer.
And I'm Andy Casper. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Facilities and Support Services.
Very good. If each of you will raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Chair Petrie and the members of the committee, we'd like to thank you for welcoming us here today. All 63 of our capital projects are very important to all of our campuses, but I'm going to turn it over to Andy to give a brief information on some of the major projects that we're looking for.
Yes, and as the chairman indicated, we have 16 colleges and 70 campuses. We have significant, and I mean significant, educational opportunities within 30 minutes of 95% of all Kentuckians. So your investment and what we're trying to do here is not just investment in buildings, but it's also an investment in changing lives of Kentuckians. First of all, we'll thank you for the asset preservation funding. We were able to accomplish 58 projects that actually touched all 16 colleges, all 70 campuses. I don't even have the exact number of buildings because multiple buildings were affected by each project, but that was a very big thing. We've identified for the next biennium that we still have about $360 million worth of asset preservation need. I realize you probably won't fund that whole amount, but if you wish, I'll take it up. But with that, we would appreciate any investment you can make, and then we will look for other ways to accomplish the other things we need to. Life safety projects, security projects, mechanical system upgrades, which conserve energy, which helps us in our operating, roof replacements, and some major renovations that are necessary for us to keep up with the technology necessary for the types of training that we need to provide throughout Kentucky. There are a few projects, though, that are very important to us outside of just asset preservation. And the first three are continuation projects. You've already funded phase one of each of these, and they are very important to us and underway, and we're looking for the next phase. So at Elizabethtown Community Technical College, the occupational training building, which is a conglomeration of every vocational school that has ever been on that site, plus a couple of other additions over the years. It's 110,000 gross square feet. It's 55 years old at the oldest part and about 45 years old at the newest part. We're looking to expand programs there and to renovate that, and as I said, bring in other technology. At Jefferson Community College, we have a 12-story tower that has an elevator that goes 11 stories that houses all the science and those types of programs in it. We did a study a few years ago about renovating that and found out that it has some significant building code and structural issues that cause us not to be able to renovate that building. And so we had started phase one, which right now is underway. We're constructing a new science laboratory building on the main campus, and we're asking for a phase two of that to continue once we've gotten the science building out, science functions out, to raise that tower, to change the main infrastructure utilities for the campus, which come underneath that building, to better service in the future, and then to construct a smaller classroom and lecture building there on that site. That will be the second phase, and that will conclude that. Then at Somerset, we have one building from 1971 that used to be a high school area vocational center, and we have been using it for 15 to 20 years. We did a study to find out what we were going to need to do to renovate that, and the architects have told us that we would be crazy to do that. We should actually replace that building. And so our third project, we have phase one that we're doing now to get ready for that, and phase two would be to actually construct that building on our other campus there in London, which is 3 miles away. So we're consolidating campuses to get rid of all that overhead and be able to provide the training necessary in that area moving forward. We have two other projects that are necessary because of the economics of especially the I-65 corridor. As you all know, there's a lot of activity there. We already have projects underway, but our Bowling Green, our college in Bowling Green, the South Central Kentucky, has a Glasgow campus. Our current nursing program are in buildings that used to be TB dormitories and a triple wide trailer. We've used those facilities for a very long time. We cannot continue to do nursing programs in those buildings, and we need to renovate or replace those buildings. We also right now share a building with Western Kentucky University for technology, our technology programs, and Western now needs that building all to itself, and so we need to find a new home for the technology programs that we need to do there, which because of the economic growth in that area are becoming even more critical. And so we're proposing to relocate to a new campus nearby and to start afresh with the project. The other thing is that also for the South Central campus, at our Trans Park campus, which is the industrial authority for Bowling Green, we need to add a second building to that campus to take care of the current and coming very shortly needs of manufacturers and businesses in the area for technology. So with I've rambled through those very quickly, but those are the really things above asset preservation. But we anticipate that you'll help us and understand that, as I said, the investment in KCTCS facilities touches every part of the state and touches just about every Kentuckian in some way.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Got a lot of ground to cover. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have up next Kentucky State University. And if each of you will make sure that your microphones are lit up really bright green, close enough to you so we can pick it up for the record, please introduce yourselves.
My name is Jennifer Linton, and I'm the Interim Director of Capital Planning and Facilities Management for Kentucky State University.
Kofi Akapo, Kentucky State University President. I've been here when I was 2 weeks on the job. Now today it's exactly 143 days.
Very good.
And I'm Tammy Dukes, the Board Chair for Kentucky State University.
Very good. If each of you will raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members. We have, 143 days on the job. What I learned over those 143 days, had I known then what I know today, I would have close to $200 million request for you all. But what I have before you is, with all due respect, it is for the survival of KSU. You all know what we've been through, and I pledge to you all that I'm going to fix the institution, which we're going to do. But we need the enrollment to fix it. So our biggest program, our fastest growing program, is nursing. It's currently housed in an old infirmary. The doors cannot lock. The air conditioning system does not work. You can't rely on it. It will work one day, the next day it will not work. and that's why we have our mannequins. So I'm respectfully requesting $50 million to build a new health sciences building. As all my colleagues said earlier, the Commonwealth needs some healthcare workers, and we're producing nursing professionals. Currently, we have 170 plus students in the program, and the incoming class this fall is 200. You all will agree with me that an infirmary cannot contain all these people. So by next fall, I'm afraid we will not have a place for them to stay, and we cannot turn students away. In the meantime, I'm working on an old building, one of our initial buildings, to put the overflow in there. But we need to add quickly so we have space for students to come to us. I heard my colleagues talk about 1970s, 1930s. My office is in 1906 building. So my next request is for asset preservation. As I'm working on a new master plan for the university, in one of our meetings with Ms. Linton, the consultant was telling me, sir, if we look at square footage per student, FTE, you have the largest among all the universities. But don't celebrate too quick. 2/3 of it is not usable. So that's how bad it is. And as I speak to you, currently I shut down one of our dorms. It has asbestos, it has some problems, and it's going to cost $6.9 million to bring it back to life. So we have a request for $25 million for asset preservation. And the last one is for IT upgrades. My institution has been neglected for far too long, and all this needed investment will be crucial for me to get it back to life. And what I promise to you, to make it brighter and great again. Thank you.
And we'll give the opportunity to anybody else who wants to talk.
I think
Okay.
he did a great job covering it.
It was well covered. All right. Thank y'all very much.
All right,
Thank you for the
thank you.
highlights of those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to the remainder of the agenda, rather efficiently. 6, I would suggest to people look at the information as follow-up from KDE and from KIA and correspondence received from CPE, Jenny Bannister and Jennifer Hayes. And having no other business, we are adjourned.